Hey, Travis here at Books, Builds, and More, and today I'm doing a book review for Midnight Murders by Nicole Brona. This is book 3 of her Midnight Detective Agency series, and we follow main girl Tessa O'Hara, who is this kind of supernatural journalist. She's human, but also not fully human. She has a special ability where she's able to see other supernatural beings in the human world. But she doesn't have like special magic powers or anything, at least not yet, or that she hasn't tapped into it or yet. Right now, all her ability seems to be is to just being able to see other beings from the magical world, whereas regular humans in this universe don't. As such, she kind of is working for this queen and king that take charge in this other world that is in a different realm. Of course, you have to go through these portals in this world to get to that one, but humans can't go through it. Therefore, Tessa cannot go through it, but she still has this ability, so she's still mostly human. And of course, this Midnight Detective Agency comprises of her, a vampire, her own house fairy, and, various other side characters, which are mostly magical beings that accompany him through these different cases that they work. It's really a terrific urban fantasy series. It really is. This is the first time I'm getting into the genre, and I gotta say, it's really entertaining. I really enjoy it. And of course, it's just a great premise to have these characters kind of form this supernatural detective agency that works cases that are very relatable to regular human cases, but are done in the supernatural world. And I think that's a great way for the author to kind of explore the different kinds of lore of the different supernatural races by doing something like this. So it really does make for a very interesting series. Now, 3 books into the series, all of these cases so far have dealt with some kind of murder investigation. There's some supernatural being or group of beings actually each time have been killed by something, but there are different motivations. The first book had to deal with junk food trafficking, which I thought was a really clever metaphor for something in this universe. And the second book dealt with a long-standing family feud. This one was a family feud as well, but we get 2 different factions actually that take center stage here. Werewolves. The werewolves are back, baby. Yes, I was so excited to see the werewolves back. They were introduced in the first book. We didn't get to see them in the second book, but this one, they come into play big time. They didn't have much of a role in the first book. They were just, the first book was basically just set up, of course. I mean, it was a legit case, but, we were introduced to a lot of characters that I think are going to play crucial parts throughout the rest of this series. But the werewolves are back, and we get shapeshifters, other kinds of shapeshifters on top of that with this. And as anyone who watches or reads, many different kinds of supernatural stories, when it comes to werewolves and or shapeshifters, there's going to be some type of action, like really brutal and violent action that's going to happen at some point. Having said that, that means the first 2 books felt quite subdued in their nature. I mean, yes, the cases were hardcore, but they were kind of light in nature. This one steps up its game and becomes a little bit darker at this point in the series because of just due to the brutal and violent nature of the crimes and a lot of the action scenes in this one. The action really amps up in this book. And for the first time, Tessa herself is actually in danger in several moments throughout this book. Now, there were times where she was kind of, under threat a little bit, in the first 2 books. But this one, she really is in dire straits in this one with the violence and the threats and everything else. But here's the thing. I don't think her stress level is due to the fact that her ability is newfound or anything like that. It's actually not at all. And the one of the things I really enjoyed about this series so far is that from the moment the series starts in book one, she has this ability. She's already adapted to it. She's accepted it. It's casual. It's treated casually. It's just a part of who she is. And she knows this. She carries it on, you know. But I think her stress levels are due to the fact that she has very limited information, due to the fact that she cannot, move through the portals from this world into the other world, like Bloodsworth, her vampiric, partner in the agency, or any of these other magical beings. So she can only report what she sees on this side of the other world, and she has to rely on Bloodsworth and anybody else that she trusts that go into the other world and bring back this information and talk about the action over there. So that's another thing I enjoy about this series is that mystique. We don't get to see what's on the other side because we're following Tessa throughout the entirety of the stories so far. And we only get limited information that way. So that is what makes it exciting. And I think that's what stresses her out a little bit. And, with these threats and stuff is because she doesn't know, because she can't actually see it all for herself, but gets told. But I do think she, has at least a lot of 100% trust in Bloodsworth, because I don't think he's going to lie to her about anything in this book due to their friendship and their partnership in this detective agency, and their care for these other of what happens to these other magical beings. And speaking of the secondary characters, we get to see a lot more action from Bloodsworth in this one, which I really enjoyed. I mean, he is the one that's kind of the pit bull, being the vampire of the group. He's kind of the pit bull of the detective agency, but he really gets put through the ringer. We see a lot more vulnerability from him in this book, and it was a nice change of pace to see him have these kind of down moments, where he can be harmed. And so these are very real threats to him as well. Also, we get a little bit more from Drusilla, Tessa's house fairy. Not by much, but he is becoming a very vital part of the group. I think he had more of a prominent role in the second book as opposed to this one, but still, he is becoming really ingrained in the agency. A couple of secondary characters that I enjoy for this reason are Alex and Nina, which is a couple of characters who live in Tessa's apartment building. They're strictly human. They have no knowledge of the supernatural whatsoever. And that's important, I think, for Tessa's character because she has to kind of balance this secret of hers that's probably going to come into play. A twist I'm thinking is going to happen there, especially after what happened in this book. Now, Alex and Nina they're just there. So far they've just been there, to show that Tessa's still human. It brings out the more human side of Tessa, and grounds her in just reality, in the human reality, and takes her from us out of the supernatural way, if that makes any sense, for a while, so hey, she is still, human. She has these human connections, and now she has to keep this other side of herself and this other world secret. But it almost kind of blended in this book where, Tessa was threatened. Slight, very small spoiler here, but there was a point in here where one of the bad guys was threatening Tessa by showing her video of them stalking outside of where she lives, showing them video of her friends that are inside her apartment, both human and the glamored supernatural beings, the werewolves, around her apartment. So yeah, things are getting real, not just for her, but for just about anybody in her life. We still haven't got to meet her mom or dad in person yet, and I'm looking forward to the day of that. But right now we get these vicarious, phone calls and texts through those characters, and I think her parents are just really cool. I love the connection that she has and the relationship she has with her parents. It's not complicated. Well, maybe a little bit to an extent, but for the most part, it's just normal, good old, daughter, mom, and dad relationship. So yeah, I think we're going to see a lot of growing character development with these characters, not just with Tessa, but all of them, but due to her relationship with them and well, just all the characters' relationships to one another because it's becoming very, very interesting. This book is, I think, a very pivotal book so far in the series. And talking about relationships, I said in my review on Murderous Fairies, or I touched on it, that I was kind of wondering if there was going to be some kind of romance between Bloodsworth and Tessa. I didn't really want that because I kind of like their workmanship banter and their friendship just within the detective agency to stay where it is, because I think they work better as a pair on that front instead of, becoming more intimately involved. Well, let's just say I've been assured that there will be no romance between those two characters, so that kind of makes me glad a little bit. However, I would like to see Tessa have a kind of intimate social life. And there was one very, very, very brief hint, a couple of really blink and you miss it moments, but they are there between her and the head werewolf, Jefferson, the alpha werewolf in this story, that I'm all for it. I am all for that. If that gets going, I will be all for that. And something like that could complicate things on so many levels, make things a little bit challenging. Like, how will this affect her partnership with Bloodsworth? Maybe her relationship with Drusel, because, he kind of demands her attention a lot, and I love that little relationship because it's hilarious. It's just funny to see that she has a house fairy and a ghost, and those two don't really get along, so she has to kind of referee that. But it all works. So I would like to see Tessa's character grow in a more romantic way, just to kind of complicate matters a little bit. And who knows? It's something that would certainly up the stakes in future storylines, perhaps. And I just want to touch one thing about the actual case in this book. It was based on a family feud, but it had a mafia or mob, theme to it, which I'm not a huge fan of that kind of trope, that kind of storyline where, the mafia or the mob are involved. I mean, it's all right. It's not like I hate it or anything. I'm just not that big into it. But there was a big, huge instance of betrayal in this one that made it very, very interesting. And we got a couple of really hardcore but very intriguing characters with Grace and Cillian in this. So yeah, I was okay with that. So having said that, I gave this book 4.5 stars. This series is getting better and better by the book. I just love this so far, and I can't wait for future installments. And that's it. My take on the Midnight Murders, third book of the Midnight Detective Agency by Nicole Brona. If you want to go check out her channel, she is Nicole's Bookish Nook. I have the link to her channel below. Please go check out this series and a lot of her other books that she has published. And also just go check out her channel. It's really great. But I do highly recommend this for anyone that would want to get into the urban fantasy series, or, just read a really good urban fantasy period. But if you've stuck with me this long, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.